right. So yeah, welcome everybody. Happy to have you all here. I'm coming to you from very sunny, as you can tell, Oakland, California. And we're going to just talk a little bit about good deeds and kindness as part of Global Wellness Week. Good deeds was one of their kind of elements of global wellness. And I think that is something that we can all really relate to, no matter who you are, where you are at in your journey. We all know like the feeling of doing a good deed, receiving that from someone else, and just like how that makes us feel. And as it turns out, there's actually a science behind it. There's physiological things happening, chemical things happening within our body that releasing endorphins, hormones, like things that are actually changing in our body by doing these good deeds. And so I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. We don't even, I think, need to know the actual science behind it, because we can feel it, right? We know what it feels like, and we know how that can help both us and help others in the world by spreading those good deeds, right? And another big element of it is that, you can only do so much for other people. I think a lot of times, depending on who you are, your personality, a lot of times, there's kind of like givers, people that are just constantly giving and doing things for other people, and then kind of forgetting about themselves in a lot of ways. So that's an important piece of the pie too, that you need to be able to, part of kindness and doing good deeds is self-care, right? And caring for yourself so that you can then care for others. Because if you get really run down and burnt out, it makes it really hard to do good things for other people as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then Dr. B, I think also with the chat sharing for anybody that joined later, you may, if you could just pop that information back in the chat as well. Because I think if you put it in before everyone joined, they don't see it until.
Okay, I'll do it at the end too. And friends, I'd like you to drop your name and where you live into the chat, particularly if you're new to the Bauman Wellness community. We welcome you.
Definitely. See some familiar faces for sure. Oh, yeah. All right, so let me just, all right. Hi, Lee, Berkeley neighbor. Yes. All right. So let me just share my screen here for a minute. And basically, I'm going to go through just a few slides. I won't bore you with too much by way of slides and whatnot, but I want to just touch on a couple of things. And then what we're going to do is kind of as a group is come together, and I will share a link in just a few minutes for the slides, and you can actually sign into the Google Slides, and it's going to be kind of an interactive part where you can add some elements into the slide program. We're going to create a calendar together that I'll share with everyone afterwards. So once we get to the end and you can share your email with me, then I'm going to put together a full calendar so you can have little pop-ups of like, here's a good deed that Beverly came up with today, or whatever. We won't have to put our names on all of it, but I think it'll be a nice way to put together a calendar of things that we can kind of have some nice like ideas and actionable steps that we can do, as opposed to just be like, oh, okay, like I'm going to do some good deeds, I'm going to do some kind things today, but really thinking of all the different ways we can be kind to ourselves and to others as well. So all right, so we are going to talk about kindness, as I mentioned, and a little bit behind the science of kindness, and how being kind and how good deeds can not only help you, but also help the rest of the world. We always want to, kind of better the world in whatever way that we can, right? Like that's one of the reasons why we're here, is not only to just live our life, but to make an impact. And I think that we all probably can feel that we make an impact even in small ways, so whether it's just, giving somebody a nickel, or whether it's like building a bridge, there are lots of things that you can do, large and small, that can help others. So good deeds is one of those things that can be really simple, that can make both you and someone else feel really good. So that's me. I am Alicia Ferris. I'm a Bauman grad, and I am a holistic nutritionist and also a teacher. I teach mostly teens and tweens and families, like cooking and nutrition, just because I kind of found that in my nutrition consulting practice that so many families were struggling with like picky eaters or with just not really having the time or energy to cook. And that I felt like that was such a huge component of wellness in general, is kind of being connected to your food source, to your farmers, to your ranchers, you know, to where your food's coming from and how to prepare it in a way that is helpful for you. And especially when people have allergies and intolerances and things like that, it can be a really big challenge for people if they don't know how to cook to take care of themselves. So I kind of got into that. I am an aspiring herbalist. I love to just spend time in nature, as you can tell, just harvesting wild weeds and plants and mushrooms and making tinctures and whatever else kind of speaks to me at the time. I also really like fermentation. I brew a lot of kombucha. My kitchen always smells super weird. My fiance does not love that part of my character, but I love to ferment things. Sometimes I do them outside and then the cat gets really upset. I don't know, but I also love plants, lots of plants inside and out. And breakfast is my favorite food, any kind, smoothies or bacon. All of the above are good for me. So what we're going to talk about today is basically kind of a definition of kindness. And I want to also hear from you all as far as how you would define kindness. Then we will look a little bit into the neuroscience behind it, and then some studies that have been done on how it affects our immune system as well. So any thoughts? Who feels like they have like a good kind of working definition of what kindness is, or what does kindness mean to you? And you can just unmute yourself if you want.
I think it's an expression of love. Just that feeling of appreciation and validation.
Yeah, definitely.
I think of extending goodness or generosity.
Yes. Yeah, because it's an extension of love. It's an extension of self, of as you said, kindness, generosity. Here we have a definition of kindness as a sensitivity to the distress of others with a commitment to try and do something about it. So when I read that, I think, okay, like you could be kind and you could think kindly, right? There is an element to kindness that is thoughts, right? When you're thinking to maybe someone that's far away, someone that's struggling, sending that like loving kindness, that meta kindness to them is one way of defining kindness. And then when you think of like, compassion, altruism, it requires action. It's like you can see someone that is maybe struggling and you can connect with them in a way that's meaningful, right? But it then requires the action step to not just feel their pain, but to help to alleviate some of that, is like really where the kindness kind of comes from. So yeah, I think that it does require some action, not just like, oh, that would be nice of me to do, and I'm sure we've all been there, right? Like, oh, thinking like of, oh, doing this thing would be nice, but then maybe you don't do it. You let that moment pass by. And then you kind of dwell on it later and think like, oh, like maybe I could have done more there, or something like that. So just like taking that moment in the split when it comes into your mind and you think, like, oh, that's a nice thing I could do for someone, just to take that moment and just run with it, right? Even when you think about sometimes with like a gift for a friend, you see something that reminds you of someone, you want to bake something, cook something, and you think, oh, so-and-so really likes this meal, like just go ahead, just follow through, that's a big part of it too. So another thing is that our autonomic nervous system actually plays, which plays a role in regulating our blood flow, our breathing, a lot of the kind of actions that our body is doing on its own. When we, for example, feel like threatened, right? Like a fight or flight response, that kind of gets called in. So if you think about something like compassion, what they've seen in studies with children is that when a child feels that, when the child sees like a suffering, right, like an upset parent or another child that's having a hard time, oftentimes what happens with the child is that their heart rate actually lowers. It will go down from the baseline levels, like that. This is not a frightening situation for the parent, for the child, even though maybe if the parent is upset because they're frightened, but that the child will actually go to the person or the situation and try to like soothe and comfort them, which is kind of fascinating. I think a lot of my work with children is like, you see that the innocence, you see the way that they act upon their feelings because they don't have so much of the programming that we as adults have. Like, oh, well, if I see this person crying on the street, what if they're going to hurt me? What if they're dangerous? What if like they don't want me to be there? And children don't really have that feeling, that programming yet. So they are more willing to just kind of step into that and be like, oh, why are you sad? Like what's going on? And so I try to like learn from children a lot in that kind of way. So in the brain, we have a lot of things going on with kindness. And, the brain is such a fascinating place of study as well, because up until really, pretty recently, we thought the brain was just the brain and there was nothing really changing in the brain, that it just was what it was. But now we're learning more about the plasticity of the brain and how pathways are created and changed, and how the brain does actually, change over time, and how it can change over time. So a lot of the research behind kindness and the brain is about like the release of oxytocin, as well as dopamine, and then that kind of creating little bursts of euphoria, right? So oxytocin, which is sometimes referred to as like the love hormone, social bonds. When mothers are breastfeeding, that's the hormone that's produced. It kind of solidifies and creates that bond. It's very trusting. It is kind of just floating around the bloodstream. And when we, are involved in an act of kindness, whether that's to ourselves, an act of kindness towards someone else, or someone showing an act of kindness to us, the oxytocin levels rise, which creates a bond between both you and that person, and like a trust and a connection. So it's an important part of life. And especially these days when we are kind of at home a lot more, we are really lacking in a lot of the community and the connection that maybe at some point we were better at as a society, and that we can continue to grow towards and work towards. And I try to find places, even in like, if I'm stuck at home, like if maybe I'm on a message board or in an online community, ways that you can show acts of kindness and not like expect something back, right? So whether it's that you are good at technology and you can share some information with someone that's not so good at technology, or that someone's just like expressing maybe in an online post or something that they are feeling some sadness or something, instead of kind of just reading over that and thinking like, oh, that's, I'll just send them some love from my heart, which is helpful, but then like really taking the next step to like try to connect with people, like even if it's not in person, if it's in an online setting, if it's a phone call, that can be a super helpful way to express kindness and to actually sort of start to create those pathways in the brain. So the new neural connections that are like, so basically if you're if you're helping others on a regular basis, you're actually changing your brain, that makes it like easier and more active, or for you to continue to do those good deeds. Like if you just do one, it's going to give you a little burst of oxytocin, of endorphins. You're going to have a few minutes of, oh, this feels really good. But then after a few minutes, that's going to go away, and you're kind of going to go back to being your normal self. But the more often that you're doing them, it makes it easier for you to do them. And it kind of keeps that fire alive, right? So I think doing them really often is such a great activity to try to engage with as often as you can. So another element is with the immune system, right? So this study was done by some researchers at the University of Valencia, and they were doing basically mindfulness and compassionate like exercises with people, and then looking at their saliva, and the kind of hypothesis was that mindfulness and compassion were going to lower salivary cortisol, which it did. And then they also found that the saliva of people that were practicing mindfulness and compassion more often had more immunoglobulin A, which is an antibody that helps to fight off infection, right? So, and when you're talking about lower salivary cortisol, we know cortisol is what increases the sugars, the glucose in the bloodstream. It alters your immune system responses. So having lower cortisol and stress obviously is a huge part of our lives these days. It is something that is just overwhelming people and immune systems. And Lord knows we all need to have really strong immune systems these days. So things like mindfulness and compassion and showing compassion to others can actually really help to strengthen our immune systems, which is very cool. Okay, so I want to hear a few ideas, and we're going to get into actually while I'm here, let me share the link so you guys can go ahead and log into it. But I want to hear some good deeds from you all, because I'm sure everyone, especially while we're talking about good deeds and being compassionate, you've probably, something has popped into your head of a specific memory, a time, something that you did recently, something that was a long time ago, either that someone did for you or that you did for someone else, that really made an impact on you. So I would love to take a minute to just kind of popcorn around and share just, a random act of kindness, a good deed, something that you would like to share that brought joy to you or someone else. So let's start with that. And then after that, we will dive into putting together our calendar. So we can kind of start thinking of more ideas and more things that we can all do as a group. So
I've got one to share.
Okay, go right ahead.
All right. So last fall, pandemic, September, kind of rough time. And we've got fruit trees. So we just put apples out on our front ledge. Okay, we put stuff out on we have like a stone ledge we built in front of our house. And I live downtown, and people walk by, and the neighbors, we walk around the block a lot, see each other and so forth. But we put like a bushel or more of apples, really nice, fresh Gravenstein apples right on the ledge, and go, hey, help yourself. All right. Mm-hmm. And, a couple people said, hey, thanks. That's really cool. And then maybe 3 days later, we got an apple pie. Our neighbors made little apple pies and left them and said, thanks, Bowman.
Oh, I love that.
Here's something sweet back for you.
Oh,
that was good.
That's such a sweet reminder that it goes around. Like you did something like that you weren't expecting anything in return. Of course you weren't like, oh, I sure hope someone makes me an apple pie with these apples.
I never thought about it at all, and did not know the woman who made the pie or the people who made the pie, but then we actually made acquaintance. We go, oh, hey, you're over there, we're over here. Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was good.
I love that. Love that. You want to just popcorn to someone, Dr. B?
Oh, I don't know. Dawn, you got something?
I was thinking something similar along your lines, Dr. B, that just this week I picked some fresh green onions and lettuce out of my garden and gave them to my neighbor.
Yeah. Just knocked on the door or left them on the doorstep? How'd you do it?
They were just outside and I say, hey, I have some extra onions and lettuce. I'll bring them over to you. And they're like, oh, that's awesome. Because he's like, I love putting fresh olive oil and salt and pepper on the onions and then grilling them. And so,
Ooh,
yeah, very appreciative.
sweet.
Yeah, shared food is such a good one, especially
Works great.
when you've got fruit trees or when you've got vegetables. I end up getting a lot of squash in the summer because I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
my,
No, we
my
all-
neighbors all grow squash, which I love. I make a lot of zucchini bread. Oh. All right, who else got one? Hit us up.
I could think of a time last summer when it was pretty scary around the hills here
yeah.
with fires, and we
Yeah.
noticed some hazards in a neighbor's backyard and volunteered to go clean it up. And we had we filled several garbage cans and several hard days of work, and forged some new relationships.
Especially in times like Dr. B was saying during the pandemic, or Leah with the Lee, excuse me, with the fires, like especially in a time when you feel like you don't have much control, when you feel like there's really nothing that you can do, whether it's because there's a pandemic or because there's fires, like finding those times, especially, I feel like are really great and an important time to be like out there, like spreading love and sharing good deeds and doing things for others. Because even just doing those little things, whether it's something good for yourself or for someone else, like kind of puts you like you have a little bit more sovereignty, a little bit more control in those kinds of situations too. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Lauren says cooking.
Yeah.
Love language of cooking. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
such a good one. Cooking and sharing meals and spontaneous timeouts in nature. Definitely. Also a good one, Jean. Okay. All right. Anyone else have one they want to share before we cruise through?
Well, I have a couple of clients I've been working with for 25 years,
Mhm.
and I stopped charging them after 1 year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I accepted them into my family
Hmm.
as my relatives, and I just like being there with them, for them, and they have challenging issues,
Hmm.
and they're up against the medical system that can't explain anything, and just telling them they're cool people. You've got issues, but you're an amazing, cool person. And when I knew you, you were feisty and go-getter, and now you're kind of a bit on the Parkinson type side,
Hmm.
but you're the same person and show up that way. And I love you for being who you are, not for how you are.
Hmm.
And it's a lifesaver for her. And I have a couple of people in that category. I just go, hey, what's up?
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Because
Yeah.
Lord knows it's hard to help your own family. It's nice to have family that comes to you that you can actually help.
Well,
Depends on your family, I guess.
yeah.
So I want to share, as Dr. B is talking about friends and that he stopped charging. I
Yeah.
had the meeting this morning with the client, and her daughter was asking lots of questions beside the meeting. The meeting was with her mom, not about her, but she asked lots of personal questions about her family and stuff. So as Dr. B was talking, she just sent me a text message saying, what do I owe you for this morning? So I said nothing. Consider it a gift. Thank you, Dr. B, for inspiring me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it comes around, goes around.
Yeah, it does.
It does. That's important.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it. When it comes around and when it comes to you, you see that and are excited about it, but it's not something that you ever give feeling like, oh, maybe if I do this for this person, like they're gonna come back and like do something really nice for me. Like it doesn't feel the same, right? Yeah, it doesn't like that doesn't really feel good when you have like a motivation or an intention, like that kind of, you know. All right. Well, so I put together a little calendar that if you all want to click on the link in the chat here, and I'll send it one more time for anybody else that just, oops, hold on. Anyone else that just joined. So that's going to actually bring you into this slide deck. And in the slides, there is a page with a calendar that I want to fill out together. And also, before we even dive into the calendar, is talking about other ways to be compassionate to ourselves, which I think is also very important. So if you sign into the calendar, then it's slide 10 is the first page of the calendar, right? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So, so I actually wonder if I can edit and share. I don't think I can. So you guys are in charge. And we can even look, I put up a couple other, there's like the
Thank you.
Random Acts of Kindness Foundation, which is a great resource for just getting ideas and things like ways that you can be more compassionate. And this has some really great, just kind of ideas that you wouldn't normally think about. So their little calendar inspired me, but I was like, I thought that we could come up with a really fun calendar of our own. So things like join a volunteer group. And it's actually been shown that, that just doing something like joining a volunteer group is such a great way to show compassion and kindness on a regular basis, but that you can actually sometimes get, it can get like so ingrained and so routine that it doesn't like light you up the same way that like helping your neighbor bring in the groceries does, or that an act of kindness that you do to a stranger does. So I think it's good to kind of switch it up a little bit, have like some things that you'd like to do regularly that you are contributing to a community that makes you feel good and other people, as well as those kind of totally random doing nice things for strangers. There's some other things on here: become a blood donor, donate to an environmental cause, listen to music, give away a plant, send a friend or family member a photo or a framed picture, things like that. Especially, I think mail is such a good way to do things like this too, for, that would, I guess, mostly be people that you already know as opposed to strangers. But, when you receive a thoughtful card or a photo, and, even not in the actual mail, maybe it's like you're thinking of someone and you send them a text with a picture of the two of you and just a sweet memory or something like that. Like just anything that we can do to help brighten up each other's days. There's so much going on right now. And so, mental health is huge and is, I think, been really weighing on people through the last year of being isolated and just kind of like feeling out of control and depression. And so anything that we can do, like take those moments to just do the extra step, like put in a little bit of extra work that is gonna make someone else's day or month or year, there's so many things that we can do for other people. And I think sometimes it's easy to just sort of get in our own heads and think like, oh, but like, I have a lot going on. I'm stressed. I'm busy. And of course we all are, that's life. But just taking the time to do those extra special things for other people, I think it's great. So we can look through their ideas for July and August also, just maybe to get a little inspiration for our own calendar. But I mean, even things like, okay, go stargazing, invite someone you don't know very well to coffee. Maybe it's even a virtual coffee. Like maybe it's after some of these meetings that, or like a networking, someone that you haven't connected with or talked to, like, let's stay after a few minutes and hang and I want to get to know you. Like even something as simple as like you are an interesting person and I want to hear what you have to say, is such a great way to connect with someone and to, you know, show kindness and compassion to someone else, is just by listening to their stories as well. Try out a new recipe. I love that one. Spend an afternoon in the park reading. That was kind of like that unplugging in nature one. That was a good one. You know, that's one that's something for you. That's something, a way for you to recharge and you to kind of find a way to sort of center yourself so that you can continue to give to others. I've been to Burning Man several times, and one of the kind of principles of Burning Man is like it's a sort of gifting idea. Has anybody been to Burning Man?
Not yet.
Yeah, not yet. Well, you should go. It's great, you know, if it happens again. But one of the interesting principles there is that it's and often misunderstood as like a gifting economy, right? So you can't buy things there except for ice and coffee because it doesn't matter. So everyone kind of comes with the idea of like giving gifts to people, and like not just like, I mean, sometimes people think like, oh, I have to bring a gift, like I have to have something that I'm giving to people, like, and many times people will like, okay, like they'll like make some necklace or a tool or something like that, and it doesn't even always have to be a thing. And I think as I've gone more than 1 year, like I kind of like understood that whole idea more, that it's not just like, oh, I'm giving you this, you're giving me that. It's just not a money exchange, but it's still an exchange of gifts, you know, but it's not that. It's just showing up constantly ready to give your gifts. And when you're working in groups and with other people, like, I think that's another great thing to tap into, is that we all have these amazing gifts, right? We have great ways to be with one another. We have information to share. Like no matter who you are, you have that spark. And maybe you don't even know what it is in yourself yet, but it's there, and it's something that like is so good to kind of tap into amongst each other, like that we can share those gifts with each other, and create a really vibrant community by just showing up and being ourselves and contributing what we can contribute and listening to others. Like, I think that's really important in kind of, you know, we're sort of building the Bauman Wellness community, that there's so many amazing people that I've met so far just in doing this, and so many great skills and talents, and just, you know, I think that's a big part of it too, is sharing of yourself and, you know, listening to others as well. So
where did this calendar come from?
this is the Random Acts of Kindness Foundation's calendar. They have like a full year calendar, which yeah, so we're gonna make our own, but I thought that they also have a really good one, but I thought it might be cool to just get our own input in it too. But yeah, they do one every year, and it's like for the full year, so you can anytime, if you're like thinking like, oh, I need some fun ideas, like I thought it'd even be cool to just set little reminders in your phone, so that like in your calendar it pops up and it says like, you know, expand your mind, sign up for a free class or workshop to learn something new, right? There's always that we could do, and we've all done that today, so we can go ahead and like check off August 3rd. Leave a flower on someone's desk.
Yeah.
Cook a healthy meal, plan a fun night out with a friend, camping, drink more water, right, Arima? Hydrate. Long walks outside. Okay, so I think that we can just pop into the previous slides, and we don't have dates on them yet.
No.
But I see you're all in there. So what you can do is just, thanks for
Should we just
everybody.
jot a note or a couple of words?
Yeah, just click on any square. And if you're all in here, you should all be able to edit. So take a hike. And if you know, you can also adjust the font if it ends up too big or whatnot. So yes, such good ones. Smile and say hello, and even things like that, just like a you know, a warm smile to someone on the street. And talking about like the central nervous system, there's actually been studies talking about when your body is kind of in like a fight or flight response, that looking at someone that's talking straight on and kind of a monotonous tone can actually feel sort of threatening. And as people that are constantly stressed out, we are often in a fight or flight response. So even things like as simple as like turning your head to the side when you're having a conversation shows like a softness, a compassion, like a way of connecting with someone. So even just like simple things like that, smiling at someone, kind of like turning your head to the side a little bit while you're talking. Those are also great ways to sort of connect, show more compassion, show more kindness. Oh, these are good. You guys are good. Buy tea for someone. Play ball. I don't play enough ball in my life.
Ping pong.
Ping pong?
Yeah, baby.
Yes.
We
Who's
can all
got a
play
ping
ping pong.
Who's got a ping pong table?
You know, I got friends with tables.
Ah,
All right.
I need to have like a Bauman
Yeah,
tournament.
we could have a little Olympics, Bauman Wellness Olympics. Yeah.
Ooh. What else do we got? No work. Oh, that's a good one, especially for a Sunday. Let's see. Yeah, I would you all want this in a Google Calendar that you can set to pop up and see it? Because I can do that. I can share this just with you after we're done. But I'm also happy to put it all into like a Google Calendar. So really listen to someone. Oh, that is a very good one too. Seeds, play. And I like that these are also a really nice combination of things for ourselves and things for others. Right. Oops, sorry, anonymous walrus. Seek opportunity to show up. So good. Say hello to someone you don't know. All right. Almost through June. Play, dance, and sing. I love that one. One of my friends started a practice of waking up and singing and dancing every single morning. And sometimes she would send a video of like, here's me singing and dancing in the morning. And it inspired me to do it sometimes. And I don't do it enough, but I think that is a really fun one to remind us to just have fun and to move our bodies in ways that feels really good for us, and to sing and dance and play and, you know, just act like a child sometimes. That is important. Awesome. Okay. Kindness in June. Yes. Compassion in July. And if you run out of ideas, you can also pop into those the June and July and August calendars to think of more things. But honestly, it's like once you kind of get flowing, you're like, oh yeah, this seems like a good idea. This could be a good idea. How can I be more compassionate? What kinds of things can I share that I'm really good at, that I can share those gifts with others?
I just want to comment on something. Compassion, as you are talking, it's kind of coming to my mind. Compassion goes hand to hand with self-love. So I would like you to explore a little bit on that, because you can be as compassionate as you're compassionate towards yourself. You cannot have more compassion for everybody else if you don't have exact same amount for yourself.
Absolutely.
So I think the compassion, if you want to build the muscle of the compassion, it's to start with yourself, and then you can expand to everybody else. That's my thought on it. So I would like to hear your opinions about it, or everybody else on the call.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I just read that book, Into the Magic Shop, that Jean recommended. That's Dr. James Doty, that has the program at it's at Stanford, right? Irima? Yeah.
Yes, it's at Stanford.
And that's an amazing book. If anyone, you are looking for a new book to read, it's called Into the Magic Shop. But it is this child that grew up with parents who were alcoholic, kind of verbally abusive, things like that. And he went to this magic shop, and this woman, just saw him and showed compassion towards him at a young age, and taught him kind of meditation practices and like mindfulness, and like how to be compassionate towards himself first, and to look at his situation as one that that required compassion for him, for his family, for himself, in order to show that to other people. And then he ended up being a neurosurgeon, and has now started this whole compassion program and studies to help others to be more compassionate to themselves and to others. But yeah, it's like if you don't have gas in the tank, you're not going to go anywhere, of like being compassionate to someone else if you're not compassionate to yourself first.
And that's the hardest one, I think, to achieve the compassion towards yourself, because of the self-critic, because of overachiever or whatever. We are always that self-critic, how you shut down and know that every moment in life you're doing the best at that precise moment with the information that you have, right? So it's a good topic to discuss further, Alicia. This is just the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. It's a powerful practice.
Very powerful practice.
And you got to watch this thing about, being a do-gooder or getting credit.
Right.
So staying back or being pretty anonymous is a big part of it.
Yeah. I think one of the meditation that was that program, compassionate program that Stanford is launching for 6 weeks. I think they go 6 weeks at a time. That was written for them by Dalai Lama. One of the meditation that it starts teaching you, look at the sun. Sun, it's a compassionately shining for everybody, and it doesn't make a distinguish who you are, where you came from. It just sends you love and the light all over the world. And, you start kind of broader and then start building up and, stuff like that. So I love that program. It's a wonderful program.
Yeah, because and there's so much that can be done. And as I think we've all kind of touched on, it's a practice just like anything else, that it's not necessarily something that, that just comes naturally, that you're just constantly like, oh, I'm just going to go out and do all these nice things. Like it's a muscle that has to be built. The brain, the brain plasticity can develop as you're more compassionate, as you do more things. So I think finding ways that we can and these ideas are all so great. I'm already okay, what am I gonna do today? I think finding ways to be more compassionate and be more kind to people is so important.
And I think it's much easier, at least in my mind, and I would like others to also join, to be kind, because it's a almost random act of kindness, right? It's a one kind of one's action. Mm-hmm. But being compassionate at every moment, it's the state of being, and it's hard to achieve. Yeah, it is really a state of being. You're being that every moment in your life. So it's, at least that's how I'm perceiving. What do you think, Dawn? You're looking but not participating.
I'm soaking it all in, but I agree with everything you guys are saying. And it can be hard at times.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the times that we slip out of it that wake us up. And those are learning moments to get back into the groove. So I think those points are just as important and great to notice.
Definitely. Yeah, that is always it's a nice kind of reminder, and especially with being at home a lot more, you don't have you don't have the opportunities as often that you see something where someone is struggling or whatever, because you're just kind of in your own little world. So it's a nice it's nice to be reminded to practice compassion more often, for sure. So
I think sometimes we get reminded when someone shows that compassion towards us. It sometimes helps remind us that we need to also show that compassion at times to others. And sometimes we don't.
July. All right, so everyone, do we have one more month? Can we get through the summer?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, this template, which if anyone's ever heard of them, Training for Change, they are an amazing organization. They have all kinds of resources for, it's kind of geared towards activist groups, but they have lots of different ways of engaging and including people in conversations and creating kind of interactive, virtual Zoom calls and things like that. So they kind of created this actual little template idea. I did I'm in this sort of activist group called Rooted and Rising, and they used one of these tools, and I was like, wow, that's really kind of a nice way to add in different ideas and be able to, especially when you're working in larger groups, it's a nice way to be able to hear from a lot of different people, and you can either do it anonymously or not, but they have all kinds of great tools if you're facilitating workshops or programs and things like that. They've got a lot of different ways for people to connect and feel included and things like that. So this big ups to them for the template there. I made it look more like a calendar, but they had just the Post-it notes that you can go in and sort of adjust things on the presentation, which was pretty cool. So
very cool. I'm just having a little trouble on my iPhone. They're only giving me ways to, start a calendar, and doesn't really give me a way to get in, but I can give my ideas. I have a master's degree in consciousness studies and happiness psychology. So I don't usually jump in because I'm usually kind of seeing what people are thinking. But, one of the things I think about nature is that I think it's when people are in nature, they see more the interconnectivity of things, and you start to have compassion even for plants, and you have a sense of connection to a plant or an animal. Sometimes if people start there, they're not as feeling as committed, you know what I mean? And they have a certain sense of how does that, like just being with a plant or being with nature for a while. And I think a lot of our society has gotten stuck being separate from nature in some way. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that a lot of us have it's like either a sheltering in too much. It's like being more inside yourself instead of being able to be open. And the whole compassion movement has a lot to do with being compassionate for yourself first, as these health workers are out there, and being able to manage the distress. Do you know what I mean? So that you're doing enough for yourself so you can manage what's coming at you, And I think there's a certain art in that, how much self-enlightened interest and self-care you're giving yourself, and then knowing when you're overwhelmed. Do you know what I mean? And then finding these things you're putting on the calendar to help you balance your own, body, mind, spirit.
I mean, this is the core of community right here,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
in a community of practice. Not just discourse, philosophy, beliefs, but practice and collaboration.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
That's for real.
And I can also share it in the circles on the bowmanwellness.co if
Yeah, there you go.
you haven't joined the community. It's a really yummy, lovely community of folks. And I think, let's see, do we put those back in there yet? I can put them back in the chat, the links.
I think putting them in the bowmanwellness.co will be great idea.
Yeah, little calendar, and we can even I can add the rest of the months, and we can kind of keep the conversation going. So maybe we can continue to add to it from there. So, well, thanks everybody. That's pretty much what I got for today, and I appreciate all your contributions and everybody showing up for compassion and kindness and love and all that.